Hello, welcome all to our webinar Securing and Future-Proofing Your Data Protection Against Ransomware. I'm Thies Beekhuis, System Engineering Lead for Northern Europe at HYCU, and with me today is our technology partner Wasabi with Jean-Michel.
Hello.
Jean-Michel, maybe a short word from your side.
Yes, thank you very much, Thies, for the introduction, and a warm welcome to all the people who are connected on the webinar. I am the analysis manager in EMEA, and I'm very happy to co-present with you around the HYCU solution combined with Wasabi, which is the best combination to protect data against ransomware.
Perfect, thank you. So for the coming 45 minutes, we will start with Jean-Michel on who's Wasabi and how they can provide hot cloud storage, specifically also in combination with HYCU for future-proofing your data protection. After that, I will take over, give you an introduction on who is HYCU and why we exist. And then we will conclude with a live demonstration how the two together can really help protect you against ransomware. But first, not to forget, if there are any questions, please leave them in the chat. We will come back in the Q&A or in between when necessary. But for now, Jean-Michel, the stage is yours.
Thank you. I'm taking the stage, and I'm very happy to present today Wasabi Cloud Storage. For those who do not know Wasabi yet, we start to become a little bit famous for our private company headquartered in Boston. Recently, we got an additional 250 million of investment, and we are close to 500 million. But more importantly, now we are ranked as a unicorn. So this is something we're extremely proud of. And this would not have been possible without having a huge network of technology partners. So technology partner is a company like HYCU, who is providing the solution which works with Amazon S3 compatible cloud storage solution. And this is the case of Wasabi. And from a route-to-market perspective, we work a lot with managed services providers, cloud services providers, who are offering the combined solution to their customers. Basically, we sell to every kind of customer profile, a lot of SMB customers, particularly the ones who are managed by companies who are offering backup as a service, and we are also present in large enterprise, whether they are public or private companies.
Michel?
Yeah.
Sorry, can you try to lower your own volume? Maybe that helps with the echo you have.
Is it better like this?
Not 100%.
I will do my best to avoid echo, but I'm not sure this is on my side. Is it better?
For me, it's better. I hope for the audience as well. Thanks.
Right. So I'm sure while I was fixing this audio issue, you have seen that Wasabi at the very rapid growth year over year. We are growing at a very high pace. We were not impacted by the COVID. That was one of the few positive effects of the COVID situation. A lot of companies, they started to move to the cloud, and Wasabi is definitely the place to be to put your data in a safe cloud solution. We are now present in 13 locations. We talk about regions because this is the vocabulary used by Amazon, and I will give you in a minute the exact geography of where we are present. But what is very important with Wasabi is our value proposition. First of all, it was a strategic decision from the founders of the company to offer a price as low as possible to be completely disruptive against the big players like Amazon, Azure, and Google. And today, what we see, and what this is the feedback also we have from our customers, if they compare what they would pay using Amazon and what they pay using Wasabi, there is a ratio of 5. Wasabi is 5 times less than Amazon S3. We are less expensive because the price per capacity is significantly lower, the ratio of 4. And additionally, we do not charge for egress when you download data, and if you do backup, sometimes you have to do restore. And as well, we do not charge for API calls, and I'm sure that when Thies is going to discuss about immutable backups, which are achievable because of the use of the Amazon S3 object lock feature, the use of the object lock API is consuming a lot of API calls, and for the cloud providers who are charging on API calls, this has a significant impact on the cost of the solution. The price is low, but the performance is very high. It took us 2 years to the fine-tuning of our solution before we started to operate our first region, which was on the East Coast in the US. And what we see, we have better numbers than the competitions. We did a benchmark to compare ourselves against Amazon. We have better numbers, and this is also the feedback we get from our partners, resellers, when they have the experience of a large cloud providers and Wasabi. They clearly confirm that Wasabi is delivering better performances. Lastly, data protection, data security. We're offering 11.9's data durability, which means that the hardware design of the Wasabi solution avoids to lose a single file across several millions or billions of files during several hundred of years. And we're hosted in data centers, which are providing all of the security and protection features in terms of connectivity, redundancy, etc. Since the beginning, Wasabi also offered the possibility to create an immutable bucket, but since then, the object lock feature tends to replace the immutable buckets, which is a unique Wasabi feature. And object lock is the feature which is used by the software vendors who are offering immutable data on the cloud. I said that the price is very low, and indeed, the price we sell at Wasabi is at $5.99 per terabyte per month. This is extremely low compared to Amazon or Azure, which are rather in the $30 or more per terabyte. We do not charge for egress. We do not charge for API calls. And we have a very simple storage structure. We have only one tier, which is high performance tier, which is primarily well suitable for the hot data, but also the not so old data and the cold data. They are very welcome on Wasabi, and they will receive the same level of service. And particularly when you want to download data, cold data will be available immediately as soon as the user asks to get the data. If we look at some numbers, 1 petabyte of storage for 1 year, 20% of egress. The customer who is using Amazon, Azure, or Google will pay something around $300,000. With Wasabi, it will only be $73,000. Benchmark, that's the performances we made to compare ourselves with Amazon. When you want to measure the performances of an object storage, you have to stress the solution. So you have to run multiple threads in parallel. But whatever we did a benchmark with 10, 20, 30 threads, we got always between 3 to 4x better numbers than Amazon. Here, this is an example with 1 megabyte. When you get a copy of the presentation, you can download the full report where we did a lot of measurements with different object size, whether it was for writing or reading data. Protection covers several topics. It covers durability. I already explained the 11.9's data durability. This is something which, as a customer, you must be sure that your cloud provider is delivering. Otherwise, your data might be in danger. Availability is the availability of the data center because the data are no longer in the infrastructure of the customer, they're in the cloud. And we are committing to a 99.99% SLA for our customers. But in Europe, we are hosted in Equinix data centers and other big names of the data centers industry in the US. And the SLA is above the 99.99%. Data security, the data will be encrypted. they will be encrypted in transit between the customer location and the Wasabi location. The data will be also encrypted at rest on Wasabi. And additionally, it is possible to encrypt the data at the source so that when they reach Wasabi, there will be a double encryption on the data. And since about 2 years, Amazon introduced the S3 object lock feature, and this is the one which is used to protect against ransomware because it delivers immutability, and so that the ransomware, they cannot attack immutable data. We have several certifications. HIPAA, FERPA, CGIS are compliances typical of the North America, and even not only North America, but USA market. But the fact that we are certified with these different solutions in the US has been requiring that Wasabi provides a lot of evidences on how we manage the solution, how we develop the system, how we handle security to monitor the system, how we handle security inside the company. And all of the other countries, although they don't have to care about HIPAA, FERPA, and CGIS, they know that being certified with these three organizations means that the solution is extremely strong. For European market and other customers who might be subject to comply with the GDPR regulation, as long as you store your data in a European region, you will be safe and you will be compliant with GDPR. So where are we located? As of today, we have 13 regions. Region is the vocabulary which is used by Amazon. So we talk about the Wasabi regions. We have 5 in the US, 4 in USA, and 1 in Canada. We have 4 regions in Europe. We started to open Amsterdam in 2019, but at the end of last year, beginning of this year, we opened London, Paris, and Frankfurt. We also have 2 regions in Japan, in Tokyo and Osaka. We opened Sydney, we opened Singapore, and definitely in 2023, we will open new regions, probably in some part of the world where we have a very limited to no presence at all, but also to increase our number of regions in the other parts of the world. We are AWS S3 compatible. So what does it mean? It means that all of the applications which support Amazon S3, which follows the IAM, Identity and Access Management API, well, of course, following the same, all the applications will work on Wasabi. Could they be backup recovery application, archiving, content delivery, the media entertainment market, video surveillance, and other big data related applications. We have additional products to provide to our customers. One of them, which is extremely interesting for the partners who are offering a managed services solution, a backup as a service solution. The Wasabi Account Control Manager is a multi-tenancy tool which will allow the resellers, the partners, to create dedicated accounts for each of their customers, and that will improve the security of the solution. We have the possibility to do bucket replication within the same continent between 2 regions, so that you have a copy of a bucket in another region within the European continent or within the USA, and same in Asia Pacific. We have in the US a Wasabi Ball. This is the possibility that we ship to the customer side a nice box which has been customized for Wasabi. The customer can upload to 100 terabytes, ship the box back to Wasabi, and we ingest the data on Wasabi. The Wasabi Ball will be available in Europe by the end of the year and in the different regions. Also, for some customers who are really looking for high performances when they connect to Wasabi, or simply they want to be sure that the communication link between their location and Wasabi is dedicated, we have the possibility to do a direct connect. So to summarize, backup, recovery, archiving are definitely the most frequently used cases for Wasabi. We have a lot of customers who are storing data, and particularly with HYCU. We have a lot less numbers of customers for content delivery, media entertainment market, But this is a market as of today where people are talking to us in terms of petabyte. I have a 1 petabyte project. I have a 2 petabyte project. Video surveillance also becomes very interesting for the cloud storage, because in most of the countries, video surveillance data are kept for 30 days. And after a few days, they don't need to be on the local storage. By moving the data to the cloud storage can reduce the total cost of the video surveillance solution by more than 20%. Well, recognized by many awards. Recently, we got a new recognition in Germany. I didn't have time to update the slides, but we got recognized one more time. And the brand, the Wasabi brand, becomes more and more recognized. So we are extremely happy about that. And we're happy about that because, first of all, we have a lot of technology alliance partners, and HYCU is our preferred partner of the day. But if you're interested by other solutions, you can go on the Wasabi website. We have a lot of channel partners, and we have also several distributors in Europe. We have exclusive networks focusing on the European market in different countries. We have Whatsoft in France, Sebertlang in Germany, Cloudland in the Benelux, or mostly in the Netherlands, and Nestec in Austria and Eastern Europe. So the best way to try Wasabi is to create a trial account, which is free. You can sign up on the link which is there. If you want to know how to use HYCU with Wasabi, we have a knowledge base article, which is more like a copy and paste of what you can find on the HYCU website, because the Wasabi knowledge base is very extensive, and all of the documents in the knowledge base which are involving another company, they have been validated by both companies, by Wasabi and the third-party companies. So how can you put your data on Wasabi if you use HYCU? I will hand it over to Tis, who is going to explain you how this works and how to protect your data against ransomware.
Thank you, Jean-Michel. Good. So, looking at the HYCU side for securing and future-proofing your data protection. For the ones that don't know HYCU yet, we are also a Boston-based company. Currently now 5 years in business with over 3,200 customers and partner-led with over 400 partners. Up to date, 140 million in funding from investors like Bain Capital, Cisco Investment, and Atlassian. I think one of the proof points of the need for another data protection solution out there in the market. One that we are quite proud of ourselves is our NPS score, so our Net Promoter Score, that's currently at 91 and only rose over the last few years. For the ones not familiar with NPS, it's basically one simple question to our customers: would you advise us to someone else? And that's a score from -100 to +100. 91 is the leading in the data protection industry. What we do as HYCU is really purpose-built data protection for private and public clouds, something I'll come a bit more in detail later on as well. Reiterating on that NPS score, I think also looking at independent reviews out there, the two that really stand out for us are the ease of use and our multi-cloud and hybrid support. And that ease of use is really something we can achieve with our native built solutions we have for the different platforms we support. Those native built platforms, there are quite some customers out there using them currently. And I think what this slide shows you more is that we don't have a specific focus, but the need for data protection is for any company out there, for the smaller ones up to the larger ones. So that also says something about how we scale. We can start small with just a couple of workloads and scale up into the tens of thousands of workloads. But why did those companies choose for HYCU? If you look at why data protection must evolve and why HYCU exists is what we saw in the past, that a lot of data protection solutions out there started when a specific platform was out there. Like Unix became big when Veritas, or Unix, Veritas became big. When Windows started to grow, you saw that Commvault really was there. Veeam was the solution for VMware-based workloads. But the problem with all those solutions is when they try to fit the solution they have for a specific platform onto the next platform. And the reality now there is that we are in a multi-cloud world with multiple platforms, and that most customers don't use just one platform, but they use a combination of on-prem platforms and public platforms. And when you want to support those multi-cloud environments, those hybrid environments, you also need a solution that's built for it. We started that with the on-prem world, because of course, back in 2017, most workloads were still on-prem. But throughout the years, we developed not only in the on-prem virtualization world, but more specifically also all the public platforms. So by now we support GCP, AWS, and Azure, the three major public clouds there as well. What we do over all those on-prem and public platforms is really cross-cloud data protection, but with that also data migration and disaster recovery. Because what we did was we really split the data plane and the management plane. How we run on an on-prem platform is completely different than how we run on a public platform. We always have a native integration with the platform itself, really utilizing the capabilities the platform itself provides us. Everything is, of course, REST API driven. So on top, we have one management plane from where you can manage your data protection, but also do your data migration from one platform to the other, from on-prem to public, or from public back to on-prem again. And with that migration, also the capability to do disaster recovery. So for customers that have an on-prem environment, but don't have a secondary data center, for instance, but want to be able to do a DR, we can provide that into public clouds and only use it when necessary. Everything we do is, like I said, purpose-built per cloud, per platform. And because it's purpose-built and natively integrated, that also means that we don't use things like proxies or gateways, but also now agents. Everything we do is agentless and natively integrated on an operating system level, but also on an application level. So everything we do is also application aware, again, without any agents. Like I said before, that can start small, but because we use those native capabilities of each platform or cloud, it can also dynamically scale. So like public cloud can easily start small and scale large, the same way we work, specifically with our public cloud solutions, because there we run really as data protection as a service. So nothing to install, nothing to maintain. You really consume it as a service. Looking at the use cases, what we see with most customers is that a lot of them are really looking to modernize their backup. The more traditional ways of doing data protection has become quite complex and cumbersome to manage and to maintain. What we do is, because we have that native integration, we make it way easier and simpler to do data protection of on-prem and public platforms, but also to facilitate that disaster recovery and migration between the two, from on-prem to public, but also from public back to on-prem again. Of course, everything we do with a focus on that application protection and really getting your business back up and running as soon as possible. That also more specifically with our ransomware protection, one of the use cases we see a lot nowadays. With ransomware protection, there are, of course, already quite some solutions out there that do the security, so really detecting and preventing any kind of cyber attack. But what we see more and more is customers are also starting to focus on the recoverability. So what if something still happens and still bad actors come through? How well are you able to recover? And that's something where we really focus on. Because if you look at how to stop ransomware, there are really 5 areas that you have to have in place. And one is, of course, leave no app unprotected. Everything has to be protected. This can be done by, for instance, like we do it with auto discovery. So any workload that starts up should be automatically discovered, but also automatically protected. So applying our policy-based protection automatically to new workloads based on key value pairs, for instance. A second area to stop ransomware is really to air gap your security and backup integration. This is, for instance, having a different identity provider for your data protection than for your production. So if your production gets compromised, they don't have automatically access to your data protection as well. But also think, for instance, on network segmentation. So really keeping production and data protection in different segments. That different segment is also to the target. So like Jean-Michel just talked about, really have that air-gapped target where you have your data protection data, but have that also in an immutable form. So a read once, write many storage layer, like we can provide with Wasabi. Once bad actors get access to your data protection environment, or to let alone your data protection storage, with immutable storage, you're sure they cannot alter or delete any of your data, and that way you always have a copy to revert back for your business. A fourth area is really around creating that cost-effective ransomware ready DR strategy. Here, it's really that you need to be able to recover from any copy, any location, be it on-prem or public. And here, that multi-cloud, future-proof data protection really comes back. You cannot rely on just one platform. You need to have the flexibility to do DR into different platforms as well when the situation is there. And one that sometimes is unfortunately forgotten, periodically assess your ransomware readiness. It's not set and forget. It's something that needs continuously attention, and that also needs a continuous assessment of where you are and how things change. This is really knowing where you are, but also knowing where to start, because this is sometimes one of the challenges for customers as well, that they don't know where to start with assessing their ransomware readiness. Like I said, with the immutable storage option, this is where we provide the solution with Wasabi. And Wasabi is an official supported target for HYCU. Not only in a compliance mode, but also in a governance mode. I will show a bit more of in the demo next. Like Jean-Michel said, we have a knowledge-based article together with Wasabi on how to set up HYCU together with Wasabi to create that ransomware-proof data protection environment. Coming back shortly to the assessment side and where to stand. This is where we have our R-score, and R-score stands for ransomware score, recoverability score, to really assess where you are and what kind of areas you can improve. We have a link to our R-score also in the attachment of this webinar, so have a look at that, from where you can get quite easily online a first impression, but also have a more extensive version where we can go in together and look where you are and where to improve. So to show how that would look like in real life, I will now jump into our demo part and let me switch screens. So if you want to know more about Wasabi and HYCU and our joint solutions on both websites, we have our joint solution briefs with the key features and benefits listed as well. But just to start from our HYCU side, like you see, our HYCU solution, I can sign in with our own HYCU authentication, but I can also use different identity providers like Azure Active Directory. I just use to sign in. That way we can also separate the authentication of our data protection environment from the production environment. On the dashboard, you get an overview of how your environment and workloads are protected, not only on your virtual machines and the different virtual machines that run in your environment on the different hypervisors or physical machines, but also from an application point of view or from file shares point of view. The way we do data protection within HYCU is through policies, and a policy is basically a service level description of how you want your data workloads to be protected. That needs, of course, a target where you want to store your data as well. And the targets, we are agnostic, so we support any NFS, SMB, iSCSI, S3 compatible as well, but also directly into Azure Blob, Google Cloud Storage, and AWS S3. But to show you how we do it together with Wasabi, from here we can add a new target, and let's call it Wasabi. We have options to use targets specifically not only for the day-to-day backups, but also for archiving, so for your longer term retentions like weekly, monthly, and yearlies. We have the option to do compression. From here, you can see we support different options to add targets, but like Jean-Michel just explained, Wasabi is fully S3 compatible. So that's also how we connect a Wasabi target. From here, we need a service endpoint, the bucket name, and of course, your access key and secret access key. This is something we get from the Wasabi side. So going into the Wasabi console, from here, when you sign in to Wasabi, you get an overview of the buckets you have. Next to the buckets, also the support for the S3 compatible policies, your access keys, your user and group management is here as well as further account settings and billing overview. From the bucket side, if we now want to create a bucket to use in HYCU, we say simply create a bucket. We give it a name, let's say protect me against ransomware. Wasabi runs in the different regions, so from here you can pick the region closest to you, and this one for me is Frankfurt at the moment. Optionally, you can set up the bucket and copy the settings from another bucket you already have, but for now I'll skip that. Here you get some extra options like bucket versioning, so keep versions of data you have in your bucket, something that needs to be enabled if we also want to have the object locking. This is the one where we start with the immutable versions in the bucket and for our backup. From here, I say create bucket. The bucket is created in the specific region. What I can do right now in the actions and settings is next to the versioning, bucket size, and other settings also go into the object locking. This is where we will say we want to have a bucket level object retention. So meaning anything that will be written into this specific bucket will have an object retention. We can do that in two modes, governance mode and compliance mode. With governance mode, there can still be users that have the right to change things. In compliance mode, no one can revert anything by any user regardless of their permissions. So once compliance mode is set, that's also the time data will be kept. This is of course the most secure one. For the compliance mode as well as for the governance mode, you set a retention time in days or in years. But let's say we now want to set it for 7 days, for instance. We apply. It really asks you to confirm that when you do this, are you sure? Because when set, you cannot undo it. It will be kept for the retention you set. I'll confirm. So compliance mode is now enabled for those 7 days. If we now want to add the bucket into HYCU, what we do is basically copy the bucket name, because that's the one we want to add in our specific target. Of course, I have to change the service point. Like I just showed, I created a bucket in EU Central 2, which is Frankfurt. On the Wasabi side, there is a knowledge base article with the specific endpoints for the different regions. So for EU Central 2, Frankfurt, this is my endpoint I have to use. And passed in that one. Of course, I need an access key to access the bucket. That access key I already created previously with a secret access key as well. And let me grab that one. From there, I can say save. And the target Wasabi with worm immutability will be added into my targets. Once it's in my targets, I can create a policy, and in that policy, here you see it's now added. I can now use the Wasabi bucket as a target. So let's say we create a simple policy Wasabi worm. In my backup for the policy, I can say how often I want to do the backup. So this is basically my RPO setting. In the RPO setting, I can set it for days, hours, weeks. Let's say I want to have a backup every 4 hours. So this is my maximum data loss, because every 4 hours I have a new backup. But we not only look at the RPO, we also look at the RTO. So how fast do you want to be able to recover? So the recovery within, again, hours, days, weeks. Let's say 1 day for now. Of course, the retention, how long I want to keep the data. And let me put it back to 1 week for now. And then the target I want to use, so where I want to write my backups to. And in this case, it's the Wasabi bucket or target we just created. Next to backup, I have some additional options to create copies, to create a longer term retention for weekly, monthly, yearlies. have fast restore options, auto assignment. This is our set and forget option, where we integrate with tags, labels, or categories from the different platforms. So basically the key value pairs. When a workload starts up, we automatically discover it. If we see that specific key value pair, we can automatically also apply the policy to that new workload. Let me save this policy for now. So the Wasabi worm policy is created. This I can now apply to one of the workloads or applications or file shares. From here, I prepared a machine that currently has no policy assigned. If I want to assign a policy to this machine, I assign policies. I pick the Wasabi worm policy, assign the policy. Once assigned, the compliance engine will automatically see, okay, there is no backup, so the workload is not compliant with what I set in the policy. So it will automatically start the backup of that specific workload. And if we go into the Wasabi bucket, you'll already see it starts writing the backup data into this specific bucket. I can always track the specific steps it's doing, where it is. It's currently writing the data into the Wasabi bucket. And keep in mind, this is an on-prem environment running that's now writing its backup directly into the cloud region of Wasabi in Frankfurt. Once the data is written into the bucket, it will update the specific backup info, export the catalog, and finalize the backup. Once the backup is finalized, my machine will change into a compliant mode, and I see it's now compliant with the policy set and protected with the backup copy that's written into Wasabi. Details around that, of course, also from here available. Quick check back into the bucket. From here you can see it written the catalog and the backup data into this bucket. And since the bucket has worm enabled, even if a back actor gets access to your Wasabi interface or gets access to the bucket and tries to delete it, even if it asks delete bucket, it will say it cannot be deleted because it has the object lock enabled, and it will be kept for at least the retention set on the bucket. For here, I would like to stop with the demo and see if we have any specific questions left. I think I have two. Jean-Michel, I see one question, I think more for you. What is the best way to use Wasabi and keep respecting GDPR?
And that's a recurring question from customers, especially in Europe, where GDPR is a daily concern. As I said, in order to be compliant with GDPR, you have to store your data in Europe. So currently we have 3, maybe 4, it depends on your view of United Kingdom, which is no longer part of the European Union, but still compatible with GDPR. Otherwise, Amsterdam, Paris, and Frankfurt are compatible with GDPR. We have some customers who are located in French overseas territory in the middle of the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. and they upload data to Wasabi in Japan because the Japan is 100% GDPR compliant country. And once the data are uploaded to Wasabi, nobody can move the data to another location. Wasabi doesn't have permission to move customer data. And additionally, when you create a backup with HYCU, you can create an encrypted backup data with HYCU, and then you can send the encrypted backup into Wasabi. So once the data will be on Wasabi, there will be a double encryption, and this is even better than a single encryption, especially because the first encryption keys do not belong to Wasabi. Additionally, it is also possible for the customers to use their own encryption keys on Wasabi.
Perfect. And yes, like you said, we also have the option to encrypt the targets from HYCU, where you manage the encryption keys. So even the possibility to have double encryption with own key management in there as well.
While you were doing your demo, and I'm always impressed by the ease of use of HYCU, Tils. It's a really great tool.
Thank you.
I looked at some question, and one doesn't seem to be a Wasabi question, is why is agentless so important? I believe I know the answer, but it's good to repeat.
That sounds like a HYCU question. Yeah. So why is agentless so important? It's really going back to that native integration and using the platform capabilities on its own. Once you have really native integration with a specific platform, cloud provider, but even also on an operating system level or application level, that also means that you don't have any dependencies on agents. That makes managing and upgrading your environment way easier than when you have dependency on agents or even also on proxies, gateways, and other components in your data protection environment. Since HYCU really runs as a service or a single appliance on-prem, it also makes it way easier to do upgrades. And with that, because we don't have those dependencies on agents or any other components in the environment, we can do that way quicker with less operations. I hope that answered the question as well. I think we're also on time, and
I have seen other questions which look quite similar. Some persons are asking, as you have multiple regions, so Wasabi, as you have multiple regions, do I need one account to access or to put data in the different regions? The answer is no. With the same Wasabi account, you can create buckets in any regions you like, wherever they are located. Usually, people are also asking about how many buckets per account. There is no limit. There is one indeed, but the limit is 1,000 buckets per account, and I don't know a customer who has been reaching this limitation.
Perfect. Good. Then I would like to thank you all for participating to this webinar. Please have a look at the attachments where there is a link to the free trial, the data sheets, the Wasabi presentation, but also the R-score to really get an impression of where you are in your ransomware readiness and protection of it. And with that, thanks again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you to all the participants.
Thank you.
And thank you, Tils, and speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Will do. Thanks.